And good evening. Welcome to another edition of Sports Corner. My name is Ralph Williams. It's great to be here tonight, here in the lovely studios of Studio 808 up here in Allentown section of the city of Pittsburgh. It's great to be here, waiting for Smokin Jim Frazier to come on the air, my co-host, and I'm also waiting for Avi GREENWALD, who's supposed to be my guest tonight from Miami, Florida. He's coming on to talk about the Steeler-Miami game. He was here last week talking to us as well in regards to that also. All right, tonight we have a lot to talk about, the Steelers-Pirates pit. Later on at 9 o'clock, I have Jerry DIPAOLA coming on. He's going to talk about the Panthers. And the question I want to ask Jerry is, well, do you justify losing a game with overs when you had an extra week off to justify, trying to get ready for this game? And that's something that I want to talk with Jerry tonight about, and he's going to be on at 9 o'clock to talk with us in regards to that and to explain to everybody how in the world that even happened, because I couldn't understand it at all. I couldn't watch the game. I had a prior obligation. I try to watch some of the previews and some of the stuff from the ACC network in regards to the game, but I haven't been able to really check the whole game out itself. I caught parts and bits of it, but like I said before, what's happening is that the fact that Pitt lost like they did 24-10 and had all these turnovers goes to show you what's going on with a Pat Narduzzi team these days. Okay, and what's happening is Pat Narduzzi hasn't been able to muster, keeping this team winning. Okay, they lost to Georgia Tech, and then they beat Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, Pitt was going to beat to begin with, because the reason I say this was because they had lost to Georgia Tech the week before. But what I don't understand is you lose to a team the week before in Georgia Tech, you beat Virginia Tech, and then you lay an egg against Louisville. Okay, this is something that I don't understand about Pat Narduzzi and his teams. Okay, what is going on the South Side? I want to know, because Pitt and the Steelers are playing the same way. They're not moving the ball on offense, turnovers, penalties, stupid stuff, things like that. And it's not just the Steelers; it's Pitt as well. Is it something with that building? Is the building cursed, or what is the problem? I mean, here, or do we have two coaches that basically are stubborn enough and think the same all across the board? All right. You're watching Sports Corner. We're here live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. My name is Ralph Williams, along with my co-host Smokin Jim Frazier, who I'm waiting for, and also I'm expecting a guest, Avi GREENWALD from Miami, Florida. I'm waiting to hear from him. He's supposed to be coming on around 9 o'clock. Jerry DIPAOLA from the TRIB Live, and we're going to talk some more about Pitt and what happened in this game on Saturday against Louisville. But the main 600-pound elephant in the room, as we all know, is our illustrious Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, Steelers lose 16-10 to Miami. They had opportunities galore, considering the first half debacle of points that Miami was able to score. They had opportunities for turnovers, which they didn't do. They had opportunities for many ways to win this game, and everywhere between bad passes, once again Chase Claypool in the wrong spot, and so on and so forth. The running game is not even there for the Steelers, okay? And this has just been going on and on and on and on and on, all right? And, an interesting fact that I heard tonight, and I got to say, I do listen to my media colleagues. I do listen to their shows. A couple of them that I'm not friends more or less, but close to, have known over the years, respect me as a media person, and I respect them back. I've been on their shows a few times, okay? One of them was on this weekend, and he was arguing with people about Mike Tomlin and how everybody kept calling up and saying that Mike Tomlin should get fired and everything else, and so on and so forth. Hang on one second here. We have Smokin Jim Frazier on the line. Smokin Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ralph. I appreciate that, buddy.
Hey, no problem. Smoking Jim Frazier, my co-host here on Sports Corner, and we're talking a little bit about the Steelers. I'm still waiting for Avi Greenwald to come on from Miami. He's supposed to be on, and I'm waiting for him to come on. I don't even see him in the waiting room yet, and we'll bring him up as soon as he gets on the air. All right, and at 9 o'clock we have Jerry DIPAOLA. He's going to talk to us about Pitt football and what happened on Saturday. Smoking Jim, what's your thoughts about both Pitt and the Steelers? While we're here, I was just getting ready to get started about the Steelers. They lost 16-10 Sunday night. What's your thoughts on the game?
Well, I tell you what, it's really a shame, Ralph, because I see a very talented football team, maybe even a team that could compete with for the Super Bowl, but because of lack of coaching and a lack of a talented quarterback at this particular point. That's why the Steelers are 2-6. Keep hearing that rookie quarterbacks can't win, but Doug Hodges was 5-3.
Right.
Ben was 15-1. Russell Wilson was outstanding. Cam Newton was outstanding. Herbert was outstanding. So if you can play, and I'm not blaming the kid Pickett, he's not ready. And it's the Steelers' problem is they didn't get a quarterback ready and really wasted a very talented team that I don't know if they can keep this team together for very long.
Yeah, exactly. And, I was listening to the show that you were on earlier with, Al Levine, the Talking Machine, the show you just came from being on earlier. The interesting part about this is that I'm hang on a second, Smoking Jim. I have to hang on. Okay. Anyway, Avi's apologizing to me here. He's running late. Anyway, I'm not happy with the performance of this team. I think Tomlin's lost his team. And the sad part about all this is Tomlin's not going to be gone until his contract runs out. I don't see the Steelers renewing his contract, especially after this last time. And these assistant coaches that he has, I blame them as well because this team should be ready to play every week. They look like deer in the headlights, and I'm tired of hearing the same excuses at his press conference all the time. And the interesting thing is now I've noticed that he's starting to really duck the tough questions. He's given smart, idiotic answers to to tough questions. And I've noticed he's managed to be experienced at dodging them all of a sudden because he knows that he's walking on eggshells with the fans and everything else. And he just seems like, he's his old arrogant self. Well, we'll just play with what we have and all that. And instead of like you've always said, instead of admitting, hey, you know what, I was wrong. You know what, maybe we should have done something a little bit better. Maybe I should coach better, like Narduzzi says every week, even after he loses. Okay, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better, Ralph. You're totally right. This team, if you look at the team in 2005 that won the Super Bowl in Ben's second year, this is, I think, just as good as the team, if not better. I think Frymouth is better than any tight end they had then. That was before they got Heath Miller. I'm talking about, say, 2004. And the receivers were better. This was before you got Santonio Holmes. You look at the highest paid defense in the NFL. So the defense was comparable to the 2004 team that went 15-1. So, the running back, the bus was on its way out. So Najee Harris is just as good as the bus was on its way out of football. So, I don't understand, why they didn't prepare better in the offseason and bring in, a great quarterback or give Mason Rudolph the shot. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers would only have one loss right now with Mason Rudolph. That'd be the Buffalo game.
I believe that to be the case. I do. You're right.
Yeah.
I agree with you about Mason Rudolph. I like Mason Rudolph. I always have. He's won most of the time more than he's lost. And he's kind of been putting us in the back burner with Mike Tomlin for the last 5 years. And it's not his fault. I mean, Ben was here, and I just don't understand. Like in 19, he didn't even beat out Doug Hodges, which I thought was actually wrong again too. I think Mason Rudolph is a reasonable quarterback. All you need him to do is manage the game. If you could fix the offensive line and get the running game going, all you need him to do is manage the game, manage the clock, and win. Even if you win by a touchdown, at least you manage the clock to where the other. You know what? I finally saw some decent clock management out of this game a little bit, Smokin' Jim, where they were at least managing it to keep their offense off the field. Where was this at the beginning of the season? Well, with the New England game and the Buffalo game and stuff like that, you got to manage the clock. And if you've got an explosive quarterback that you can't stop, you have to basically be able to manage the clock to keep that quarterback off the field. All right, now coming on board right now is our special guest tonight, Avi Greenwald. He was on last week. We were talking about the Miami Steeler game. And Avi, welcome back to the program. It's great to have you.
How you doing, Ralph? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Smokin' Jim?
Hey, how you doing, buddy? Good to have you back again this week.
Good to hear your voice, Smokin' Jim. How you doing?
All right.
I'm doing great.
Avi, what's your thoughts about this game on Sunday? I know you're in Miami and down there in Florida. What's your thoughts about this game on Sunday?
Well, first, everybody's first thoughts, Tua's back, right? Tua came out looking fearless on his first drive, looked really good, started to look a little bit rusty as the game went on. If I wanted to give anybody really credit, it would be the Dolphins defense for really keeping us in this game. We really came in with some secondary hurt, and we had the backups really step up and really make some noise. It was a really good thing to see. Dolphins really stepped it up on defense.
Do you think this thing, and maybe Smokin' Jim will agree with me, I don't know. I always say this, Avi, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I think Miami kind of got lucky this Sunday because the Steelers made some mistakes. Illegal man downfield, illegal shifts on the offense, just some boneheaded mistakes that they made. Shank punt by Presley Harvin, a few of them, as I saw it. And, and the defense not able to catch some of these balls, the defensive backs. I think the whole game could have changed if these defensive backs wouldn't have dropped some of these interceptions. What's your thoughts on that?
100%. I believe if the Pittsburgh did not, I believe it was 4 interceptions they dropped in that game. If they pick those balls off, it's a whole nother ball game, puts them in a whole nother position to win that game. Absolutely. That was the difference right there for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, the interesting thing is here, and even the national announcers even said it, as much as I can't stand Chris Collinsworth, and now you got to deal with his son, too, because he's on the same broadcast now. Anyway, so, he even said it, too. Here's a guy like Mike Tomlin, been in the league for 16 years, and for some strange reason can't seem to beat a first-year coach, in some way here. And it seems like a lot of these first-year coaches obviously seem to be winning some of these games against some key guys. What's your thoughts on that one?
Look, Steelers, they're going to have to get it together. They really just couldn't get the ball going with Najee Harris. Najee Harris had a real tough game, really couldn't break through. Dolphins had a real good job of containing him. I think it's just learning curve with Kenny Pickett, to be honest. He's a young guy. He's going to learn. He's going to live and learn, trial and error, right? He's going to figure it out as he goes. These things happen for young quarterbacks. I have all the confidence in Mike Tomlin that he's going to turn this team around. They look to be going in the right direction for sure.
Smokin' Jim, you have anything?
Well, the one thing I can say is the Dolphins weren't going to lose in front of the 72 undefeated team.
That doesn't happen. No way.
But the Pittsburgh Steelers did not get the interceptions, but the Miami Dolphins came away with 3 big ones, man. That was the game. And I thought that Tua played outstanding early, and then when he kind of lowered his head into the linebacker Devin Bush's shoulder pads, it looked like maybe, I didn't know if he got another little concussion or got a little dizzy, but he was a little bit, erratic the rest of the game. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Smokin' Jim. Avi, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you what. I did actually hear in the press conference after the game, they asked Mike McDaniels what his thoughts were on that, or if Tua had anything to say. And Tua said he came up right up to him after that, and he said, "Look, I'm sorry, coach, but I needed that." And meaning what he needed by that is he needed to let his players know and let the fans know that he's ready and he's good to go. I know it's a very cringeworthy thing seeing him roll into a Devin Bush like that, but you know what? The Dolphins are a different team. You know, they got a real juice and a real rhythm and a real vibe when Tua's out there, you know. So when Tua's out there and he's doing things like that and letting his teammates know that, you know what, I'm here and I'm going to put myself on the line for us to win this ball game, no matter what you've seen from me in the past. So I think that's a good thing going forward. Obviously, it's very, like I said, it makes you cringe when you see things like that. But you know what? That's the type of player Tua is. And Tua's going to continue to be doing that until he can't do it anymore. So,
let me ask you this, Avi. I know you covered Tampa Bay a little bit. What's your thoughts on this Brady situation? You know, his domestic affairs and stuff like that. Do you think it's messing with his head, or do you think it's just he has a bad offensive line, as we had talked last week, and some other thoughts on that?
It's a very good question. My opinion, personally, I think he's having a problem with it. I think it's definitely affecting his gameplay. I mean, who else? You know, if you have problems at home, marriage, your kids, possibility of losing your family, who's not going to have an effect on you in your everyday work life? You know what I mean? Maybe, just because he plays football doesn't mean it's not going to have an effect on his life. But you know what? Brady's also, he's getting to that age. He's old. We all know this.
Right.
He's proven that he can do it. But you know what? I saw a lot of balls being thrown into that dirt yesterday. Obviously, his receivers are dropping balls as well. But I just don't feel like this team is on the same page. I don't know if it's a locker room issue. I don't know if Brady's not stepping up and really leading the team like he's been leading it. I don't know what's going on. But I definitely, if you had to ask me that question again, I definitely think that it's definitely taken a toll on him during this season, his marital affairs at home, for sure.
Okay, he has made a statement, Avi, and I read the statement that claims that he wants to win 10. He wants to get 10 Super Bowls so he could fill both hands with rings. Okay, don't you think this is just a little excessive? I mean, come on, you're about to lose your family because you want to be greedy, and have 10 Super Bowls. What's your thoughts on that? Smokin' Jim as well.
I'll tell you what, I think it is greed at this point. I mean, how much more do you have to prove? You've done it all, right? Greatest quarterback, won the most Super Bowls. What else do you got, man? Do you really want to end your football career with no family to go back to? Do you really want to start that whole relationship thing all over again at your age? I don't know. I'll tell you what, I think from what I'm seeing so far this year, if he keeps it up, I wouldn't be surprised if he calls it quits after this season.
Yeah, Smokin' Jim.
The biggest divorce that's affecting him most is Bruce Arians.
And that was his decision.
I bet he's sorry now.
Yeah.
And that team was lost without the genius. But hey, man, Tom Brady's been a winner his whole life. I tell you what, he'll get it together because Tampa Bay is still a talented team. Tom Brady is still going to continue to work. There's nothing he can do. His wife ain't coming back. You know what I mean? That's $100 million a year that's out the door. She ain't coming back. So he's going to get it together. Tom Brady, they're not that far off in the division. Luckily, the division, nobody's really, so far out in front that they can't catch up. So I look for the second half of the season. I don't think Mike Evans is going to continue to drop bombs, right in his hand. So they'll get it together. They still got the weapons and the talent.
What do you guys think of the Carolina Panthers here? They won. They beat New England. Steve Wilkes is their coach right now, former Arizona head coach. Do you think he has any opportunity to be the head coach of that team, or do you think they're going to look in another direction? What's your thoughts?
I think he has. I think he right now, obviously, he's doing an okay job with what he's got. It proved himself yesterday. You got to remember, Carolina right now is the 11th ranked defense in the league, so they're not bad at all. Okay. Now Now, I think with the loss of Christian McCaffrey, okay, and what's obviously have the quarterback carousel that's going on right now, I think it gives more of an opportunity to find an identity again with themselves. And you know what? DJ Moore is the most talented player on that team, I think 100%. So if they got the ball in that guy's hand, Carolina's going to surprise a lot of people. Obviously, I think they surprised a lot of people last week. So like I said, don't take any credit away from their defense. I think their defense did an incredible job the other day. What's your thoughts, Smokin' Jim, on Carolina?
Well, I'll tell you what, they ain't no business beating Tampa Bay, especially without McCaffrey. But, hey, listen, when Wilkes...
I meant to say Tampa Bay. I said New England. I'm sorry.
Yeah, same thing. Hey, when Wilkes threw out Robbie Anderson, the wide receiver, out of the football game 2 weeks ago, and then chewed out the wide receiver coach, I knew he was the man for the job. You know what I mean? He showed leadership right there. I would like to see him, get that position, get that job. Yeah, there's no shortage of money in Carolina. The owner is a guy who's a friend of mine, Tepper. He used to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has $15 billion to play with, so you know what I mean. Anybody that comes to Carolina is going to get paid. So, I'm hoping that they do get the job. Wilkes earns that job right now. He looks like he's earning it, and they still got some good running backs even without McCaffrey. So they just got to get it going. And I like when the coach said, "Back position is open." Plays the best. So
right.
Hopefully, my man Baker Mayfield can get back together and start playing like he did a few years back and lead that team.
Anyway, while we're on the subject of Florida a little bit here, let's talk a little bit about Jacksonville as well. They kind of blew it this week. They laid an egg. I know they're trying to progress. Doug Peterson's their new coach. I know they're progressing a little bit, Avi, because of him being there and bye Urban Meyer kind of thing. What do you think, how do you think Jacksonville's going to do this year? Well, I'll tell you what. They made a huge move just the other day, traded James Robinson because of the injured Breece Hall to the Jets. So what that's saying is that this is now Travis Etienne's backfield. It's all Travis Etienne, and he's been progressing each game after each game. He's looking better and better. The Jaguars, of course, they're progressing. They look entirely different than they did last year. But you know what? They're not going to be a Super Bowl winning team. They don't even look like a playoff team yet. But look, they can actually compete for the division. That's step number one. If you can get yourself to win this division, the Jaguars are 100% headed in the right direction. I love what Doug Peterson's bringing to the table. Look, they went up against the Giants team, that has just happened to be on fire right now. They're beating everybody. Yeah, Brian DeBoe's doing a really good job up there with the Giants. He's got their culture changed. He's got everything changed in a decent direction. Daniel Jones is starting to do some things up there. So it's working out for them, So I had Danielle Orsino on my show back in September, and she reports for the Giants, and she was telling me about how the Giants are doing with Brian DeBoe and the whole culture thing and everything. And then I had author Mike Westkoff on my show in August, and we talked about the Jets because he's a former special teams coach for the Jets. He said he went to a couple of their practices during training camp, and he said Robert Saleh is one of the most organized coaches he ever saw. He said everything was organized. He had everything in place, what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it. It was all organized. And he said he thinks that and look at the Jets now. They're starting to win some of these games. Last year they stunk things up a little bit with Saleh's first year, but this year he's got the opportunity to really take the Jets somewhere as well. Smokin' Jim, you have anything you want to add to this?
Well, I tell you what, man, I watched the second half of that game with Jacksonville, and they were down by 6. It came down to the last play. They threw one down to the goal line to win the game. So they was a few inches away from upsetting the Jets. But again, I like what I see with Jacksonville. Totally different what they were last year. They got a great young quarterback that was outstanding at Clemson. He's been great his whole life. So I expect, and ATM, he's running. He had his best game. He looked like the running back he was in college last week. So they were able to get rid of Robinson and not have a controversy in the backfield. And I'm looking forward to the second half of the season to see where Jacksonville. They lost a couple close games this year. I like to see them win a couple of those close games down the stretch. Get some momentum for next year.
Okay, let's finish up here, Avi, because I have another guest coming on at 9 o'clock. What I wanted to ask you and Smokin' Jim here, we're going to start with you, Smokin' Jim. What's your thoughts for next week's game against the Eagles? What does the Steelers have to do in order to beat the Eagles? Or do you think they're going to come out and beat them like they did Tampa Bay after losing to Miami like this? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I went down with a wheelbarrow down to the Rivers Casino for everything on Philadelphia. So, and I'll be on Friday. I'll be at the Philadelphia game, brother. I look to collect a lot of money. Listen, Philadelphia's coming off of a bye week. They're well rested. The fans in Philadelphia, listen, the Pittsburgh Steelers took over the Miami Dolphins Stadium. They ain't taking over Philly Stadium, dog. You don't see much black and gold. There may be a lot of Steeler fans there, but they'll be awfully quiet. Philadelphia fans don't play that. Hey, listen, it's a 1 o'clock game. You know what I mean? Philadelphia's going to be well rested. They got a great defense. Their offense is on fire. And the Pittsburgh Steelers just don't have a quarterback right now. So, I look for Philly not only to win, but win big.
Avi?
I think the key for the Steelers, he played a heck of a game. I wanted to mention that about the Dolphins game. I think is also going to be a key for next week's game is Minkah Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick was absolutely playing a wonderful game, containing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle from containing them over the top. I think he did an absolute phenomenal job. Look, Steelers almost won that ball game. They almost walked away with it at the end. So I think if Minkah Fitzpatrick can do the same thing with Devontae Smith and he can keep an eye on A.J. Brown, and they can really, if they can maybe get to an early lead and then maybe get their running game going and Minkah Fitzpatrick can just handle over the top, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers might actually have a chance. Obviously, the Eagles have been on a roll. They don't look to be losing to anybody right now. They are truly a balanced team. They're doing really, really well. They got a great duo of receivers. They got a good running game with Miles Sanders right now. Their defensive line is playing out of their mind. And Darius Slay Jr. is playing like an absolute first-team Pro Bowler right now. So what are you going to do? Steelers got their hands full next week.
Yeah, I'll tell you who has had 3 monster games. Larry Ogunjobi. He has had 3 monster games. He's been making tackles. He's been clogging up the running game. He's been involved in almost had a few sacks. So he's been doing really well for us, and I'm really happy that we have him, on our team and playing. And you're right, Minkah. I've always liked Minkah Fitzpatrick. I liked him when we first got him, and I was so happy to get him and everything else. Avi, thanks for being here on the show tonight. Appreciate you again for a second week. Thanks for being here. We'll have you come on again, talk some more later on in the season. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good one.
That was Avi Greenwald from Miami, talking about the Miami Dolphins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Steelers had just played their game Sunday against Miami. Smokin' Jim, we have a familiar face of yours. Get ready to come on right now. Jerry DIPAOLA. Jerry, welcome to the program.
Ralph and Smokin', how are you?
Smokin' Jim, yeah, he's here too. Smokin' Jim.
We got the living legend.
Yeah, we got him. Jerry DIPAOLA, the living legend.
There
he is.
Talking about Ralph, right? I'm not a living legend, believe me.
Jerry, it's great to have you on the program tonight. I have a quick question. We're going to start this off with this question. How Does Pitt justify losing like they did to Louisville after having a week off? Explain that to me, please.
Well, stuff happens, Ralph. It's not a perfect system, and maybe Pitt was a little bit overrated. I don't think they have to justify themselves for losing a game to a conference opponent. I mean, Louisville isn't a bad team. Pitt should have won. Pitt has more talent than Louisville, more talent than Georgia Tech, but the quarterback has let them down this year, big time. Maybe the concussion he suffered in the Tennessee game. He missed one game. He missed a game and a half actually. Really hasn't been himself since he came back. He played well against West Virginia. I thought played well against Tennessee in the first half. But sometimes things happen, and the offensive line is banged up. You have a backup at left tackle. You have a backup at right guard. Gabe Hoy, the right tackle, missed half the season. It's not a good situation. Wide receiver, they had no depth, very little depth at wide receiver Saturday night because Bob Means came down with an injury in pregame warmups and couldn't play. So Mumfield, it was their leading receiver. I think what they need to do is I'd like to, maybe ask Frank Zinnig about this. Throw more to the tight end, Gavin Bartholomew. I think he's a great weapon, and slightly underused. So we'll see what happens in North Carolina. This is the kind of game coming up that everybody believes Pitt's going to lose. Right? They're playing North Carolina, the 21st team in the country. They're 6-1, and they'll probably win. That's pretty much the way. It works.
Smokin' Jim.
I tell you what, man, I agree with everything that Jerry said. He couldn't have said it more perfectly. The first two games, the quarterback was on fire and ended up getting a concussion. And he don't seem like the same player. He's not the same player that I watched early in his career at USC. And sometimes you get your brain scrambled a little bit, man, and then it changes your approach to the entire game. I understand that completely.
Jerry,
well, he passed concussion protocol. He passed concussion protocol, okay. and I think he wouldn't be playing if he didn't pass concussion protocol. Let's put it that way. But he's not getting much help from his offensive line. He's being chased around the pocket all the time. If he's not getting sacked, he's getting hurried, and then that's no excuse because there's been plays where he had time to make those plays, and he's missing open receivers. The first interception Saturday night against Louisville. He had Daniel Carter, the fullback, wide open in the flat, which would have been a first down or close to a first down in the red zone, and he decided not to throw it to him. Instead, he threw it deep to the end zone and got it intercepted.
Jerry, I have another question for you. You're at the press conference with Pat Narduzzi. I've seen you there because I watch him on YouTube all the time. What is this every week and every time Pitt loses a game? Narduzzi says we have to coach better. Don't you think that he's been the coach for 8 years here and he has to coach better? I mean, he should already know how to coach. What is that? I mean, what?
Well, I don't think he's saying he doesn't know how to coach. I think he's saying they got to make better decisions, maybe make better play calls, make better defensive alignments, and maybe put guys in better positions. What he's doing, Ralph, obviously, is jumping on the grenade, to support his team. He doesn't want to throw his players under the bus, so he takes some of the heat. And good coaches do that. Of course, the guy knows how to coach.
Yeah.
And he's
not
he's not perfect.
Remember, he never wanted to take blame for
right.
anything.
But Narduzzi knows how to coach. I mean, he's been a successful coach. He won an ACC championship. He doesn't always make great decisions on game day, though. I wouldn't say he's the best game day coach ever. But he does what coaches do. They jump on a grenade and support their players.
Smokin' Jim.
Jerry, in the history of Pitt, or most recent history, let's say the last 20 years, what would you rank the running back for the Pitt Panthers? He looks awfully good.
Is he?
How would I rank him in the last 20 years?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, since I've been covering Pitt since the 2011 season, and that's 11 seasons. This is the 11th season I've covered him. He's the best one I've seen, in those 11 years. Well, maybe I take it back. Second best. James Conner was better. James Conner is more of a threat.
Conner, yeah.
Yeah, but Izzy is very close, and he also has to prove it over a long period of time. Connor was a 1,000-yard rusher. Izzy hasn't been a 1,000-yard rusher. He's close this year. He's probably going to go over 1,000, maybe even Saturday night. But it's they're 1 and 1A, Connor and Izzy, and Ray Graham was pretty good too. Under
Right.
Todd Graham. And going back even further than that, I'd say those three guys are as good as anybody the last 20 years that I can think. I can't think of anybody. Well, Dion Lewis is up there too. You got to put him. I wish I had the list in front of me.
McCoy.
But McCoy, that's within 20 years too. So there's 5 of them. Where would I put Izzy? That's a good question. I put him maybe 5th now that I think about it, behind
There you
McCoy
go,
and
Smokin' Jim.
Lewis.
He said 5th.
Maybe 4th. Connor, McCoy,
Okay.
Lewis, and Izzy. And Ray Graham would be number 5, I would think. But Izzy could pass those guys up. The thing is, Izzy's not going to be around next season. He's going to play a lot fewer seasons than those guys played, just because he's ready for the NFL now. This will be his 3rd year out of high school, and I'm almost certain. Nobody has said this. I'm almost certain that he'll declare for the draft after the season.
I think he will too, because I've been hearing that coming from the national perspective. They've been like, "Oh, well, he's going to be playing on Sundays. He'll probably go after the season." And you repeated the same thing, and I probably agree with that sentiment as well. That's going to happen. What happened with the punter? I hear he was hurt. What was it? And all that special teams was all messed up. What happened with the punter?
I don't think he's hurt. I just think he wasn't
against Virginia Tech or something.
I don't think he's hurt. I think Garduzzi doesn't talk too much about injuries, but he was replaced by Cam Guess, a sophomore.
Oh yeah. That's what I was wanted to know about there.
Guess is a walk-on, and Vanderhaar, the kid from Australia, is a 25-year-old freshman. Wasn't punting that well, and he wasn't even the holder anymore. Guess had been holding the whole time. So we'll see what happens Saturday night in North Carolina. But Guess just basically replaced Vanderhaar. I don't think Vanderhaar is hurt. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's injured.
Mm-hmm. It's just he's been doing some bad punting, so okay,
right?
Yeah,
I Guess didn't do that much better. Too. Guess wasn't that much better. He was under 40. His average was under 40 yards. So that's another
crazy.
problem that Pat Narduzzi has to confront.
Yep, exactly. Smokin' Jim, you have anything?
No.
Okay. Jerry, one last question here and a few other things here that I want to ask. First of all, you cover the men's basketball team as well. They're getting ready to start. I think they've already started their season pretty much. What's your thoughts on what Jeff Capel has going? He already has a player because of some criminal activity or some arrest or whatever. What's your thoughts on this year's team?
Well, as far as D.R. Johnson, the freshman guard who was arrested for the domestic disturbance, the domestic incident in first part of October, this is the 3rd Pitt player in the past 21 months to be involved in some kind of criminal activity. Now, John Ugley was involved in a car theft, and he apparently worked his way out of it and was back on the team. Ithiel Horton punched a cop on the south side. He worked his way out of that, and he was back on the team, and then he transferred. And D.R. Johnson had a preliminary hearing, for 4 or 5 different charges against him. 3 of them were dropped. 2, he's going to face trial possibly for the other 2 charges. He's still suspended from the team. I was at an exhibition game on Saturday when they played an exhibition game against Clarion. And, obviously Pitt had a huge edge in athleticism and just ran over them. I forget the exact score, 100-50 or something like that. It's just an exhibition game. It doesn't count. It doesn't count at all. But there's some talent there. I think Nelly Cummings, the point guard, the kid transferred from Colgate, who's from Beaver County, looks like he's going to be a good player. I think it's going to also help Jamarius Burton get better shots. Last year, Jamarius Burton was always trying to make shots for himself. With a guard like Nelly Cummings, a point guard like Cummings who can pass and has some basketball IQ, a good basketball IQ, I think it'll open up Burton for some shots, and in return, it'll open up the paint area for Ugley. Ugley was getting double and triple teamed a good part of last season in a lot of those games, and this take a lot of that defensive pressure off of him, push those defenders out a little bit, trying to guard the perimeter. and open things up for Ugley maybe to score a little bit more.
Let me ask you this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't this Cable's last year of his contract, or was he extended?
No, he signed. He was extended. He signed through 27.
Oh wow!
So it would be.
Do you think? Do you think if he has a bad year in the next year or two, do you think Pitt will make a move, or do you think they're going to let him ride out his contract?
If there's no improvement from what it was, what it has been the last 3 years or 4 years, whatever it's been, I think that he'll be gone after next season, after the coming season, the season we're in right now.
Right.
If he has another 6-win season in the ACC, I don't see any way they can keep him. There's a lot of sentiment, among some fans and other people to have him fired after last season, but the buyout was way too high. I think it was like, I'm just guessing, around $15 million. I mean, they don't want to pay that kind of a buyout. And the buyout's still going to be fairly high because, like I said, he signed through 2027.
Right.
This is things are no better than they were under Kevin Stallings. And that's just a fact.
I see that. Yeah, that's. I expected better because he came from the Mike Krzyzewski tree, and I expected a lot better from him.
Yeah.
And being that he had assistants that were once coaches and things like that, and I'm hearing some conflicting stories, like his brother's hard to get along with. Players can't get along with his brother. That's an assistant there, and it's a mess there. Smokin, Jim, you have anything you want to add?
No, I agree with Jerry. I watched Cummings in high school. He was a special player in high school. Brought his team down to, I think, the Colombo Center for the playoffs, and just a natural great leader. So I'm really excited about seeing what he's going to do this year.
Jerry, I want to thank you for being on the show again. Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. I was just going to say that Jeff Capel has worked really, really hard in the offseason to bring in a bunch of transfers, and he recruited some players too. Those twins look like they're going to be pretty good. The Diaz-Graham twins, kids from the Canary Islands, look like they're going to be pretty good. They're freshmen. They're big freshmen, like 6'11", 7-foot guys. So he's worked hard and brought in used the transfer portal to his advantage. Hopefully, we'll see what happens when the games start and he has to go up against Duke and North Carolina. They play North Carolina early, by the way, December 30th at the Peterson Event Center, and you're playing the number one team in the country, just as far as the preseason rankings go. So again, if they're in the ACC, it's not going to be easy, but I give Capel credit for really working his butt off and trying to get things right.
What do you think, before you go, Jerry, I want to ask you, what's your thoughts on the ACC this year in men's basketball, especially Duke, being that Coach K is not going to be there this year? What's your thoughts on at least Duke and some of these other teams?
I think North Carolina and Duke are going to be head and shoulders above everybody else. I like Virginia Tech, and I love Virginia. I think that Tony Bennett is one of the best coaches in the country. His teams are always well prepared, play great defense. And I think those four teams, Virginia Tech, and Duke and North Carolina, could be the class of the conference. And Syracuse might be done. I just saw on Twitter tonight that IUP was beating Syracuse by a few points in an exhibition game with 17 minutes to go in the second half. Now, that game's not over, Ralph, so don't laugh yet. But that would be amazing if IUP beat Syracuse, even in an exhibition game.
Oh, my gosh.
But that's something to follow. The game's not over yet. So
you go to the sports book. I hope you didn't bet on that.
No,
I hope you didn't bet on that.
I don't think you can bet on exhibition games, can you? I'm not sure they'll take a bet on that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you go to Vegas, Jerry, you can bet on just about anything. You can bet on if the wind's going to blow or the sun's going to come out or whatever.
That's right. That's why I don't go to Vegas, Ralph.
I know. I've been there. I got married to my first wife down there. I went down there many times. I almost moved down there. So
it's a neat place, but I'd rather keep the money in my pocket. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've had some friends that went down there that drove a cab and they came back. There was one of my friends out of the 6 that went down there. He stayed. Okay, but the other 5 came back because they said they just so.
I thought you were going to ask me about Kenny Pickett. I thought you were going to ask about Kenny Pickett. You don't want to get it. You want to talk about Kenny Pickett at all?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, let's talk about Kenny Pickett a little bit. I think Kenny Pickett is kind of stuck in between a rock and a hard place. I thought he was going to do better with Matt Canada because he was familiar with Matt Canada's offense, But it turns out that Matt
No, he
Canada
wasn't.
and his play calling and this stuff
He
is going
wasn't
on. It's
familiar
just
with.
bad.
He wasn't familiar with Matt Canada's offense. He never played under Matt Canada. Nathan Peterman was the Nathan Peterman was the
that's
coach,
right. Nate
the
Peterman was the
quarterback.
quarterback.
And,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I think he knew him. I think maybe he was involved maybe in the recruitment of Kenny Pickett when he came to Pitt, but he never really played in that offense. A lot of people are saying that Pickett's growth is going to be stunted because he's playing on a bad team right now. I think he has to go out there and face the bullets and face the music and find out what it's like to play in the NFL. Whether you win, you lose. Whether the receiver drop passes, whether you make bad decisions, which he did late in that game when he threw the interception and failed to run out of bounds. Again in the Miami game. So let him have those growing pains. And by 2023, if the Steelers are smart enough to get some offensive linemen and some better wide receivers and maybe a better secondary, better cornerbacks, I think they might have a better chance to be successful with Pickett.
I think that's pretty funny because Smokin' Jim, you have anything to add to the Kenny Pickett thing?
No, I think Jerry wrapped it up, man, with a bunch.
All right, there you go. Jerry, thanks for being on the program tonight. It's a pleasure having you all the time. Thanks for giving us the insight on Pitt basketball and the football team and what's been going on. We'll have you on again sometime. It was great having you. Have yourself a good night. Be safe. Smokin' Jim, you have anything you want to say to Jerry?
Good night.
Good talking to you, Smokin'. See you, Ralph. Take care.
All right, have a great one. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right, that was Jerry DIPAOLA from TRIB Live, who was on here talking with Smokin' Jim and I about Pitt athletics. Smokin' Jim, what was your thoughts about some of the stuff Jerry had to offer?
I got to disagree with Kenny Pickett. This is listen, I understand where everybody's coming from, that once you play a rookie, you got to go through the growing pains, but this is not a rebuilding team. This was a team that made the playoffs last year, and they're better this year. They needed a quarterback. Kenny's not ready. They needed a veteran quarterback to come in here and bridge that gap between losing Big Ben and getting a young quarterback ready. This is a team right now, other than the Buffalo Bills game, the Pittsburgh Steelers should only have one loss on their schedule right now, and I don't see a win in the near future. And Kenny Pickett is on pace to throw 40 interceptions. He's not going to throw 40 interceptions. Hey, Lou Holtz is one of my all-time favorite coaches. And I don't know if you're too young, Ralph, to remember Steve Berline when he played for.
I remember Steve Berline. Yes, I do. I remember.
And Steve Berline threw 15 interceptions one year before Lou Holtz came. So when Lou Holtz got the job at Notre Dame, he says, Steve, you won't throw 7 interceptions this year. And Steve Berline got excited. He said, how come, coach? Is it the play calls? Is it the scheme? He said, no, once you get to 6, you ain't playing no more. and that's what I think with Kenny. Kenny's not, he's a turnover machine.
Right.
They right now, like I said, I would give, it's not too late in the season to give Mason Rudolph a shot. The receivers are begging to go deep. I think Chase Claypool even came out again in the media and says we need to get the ball deep downfield. That's what Mason Rudolph, his forte is chucking that ball downfield. So this is a throwaway season on a very good football team. And like you said, bro, you said it. You was the first one I heard when you said the Pittsburgh Steelers have the highest paid defense
they do.
in the National Football
They
League.
do.
That don't sound like a rebuilding team.
No, it doesn't. No, not at all. And they got one of the best coaches around in Brian Flores, and I just don't understand why he continues to sit in the press box. I don't get it all. So I mean, I think he's needed on the field behind Tomlin to maybe be sort of like a little ear, a little buzz in his ear and go, hey, look, Mike, you need to really kind of, do this, do that. Maybe that's why Mike don't want him down there. Maybe he doesn't want that little buzz in the ear. You know what I'm saying? Because, Mike Tomlin, he he's the king. He thinks he knows everything. And look what happens. I mean, and then he sits there and he comes on his press conferences and he goes, with this smart ass, like Calvin Austin III. Somebody said, "What are you going to do with Calvin Austin III?" Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him because I'm busy worrying about the guys that are playing. But wait a minute here. You got a guy Smokin Jim that's got some speed, and he's so small that nobody can catch him. And if he can sneak through the hole, he can make plays. And you're going to sit there and make that kind of a comment? And now I'm hearing he may be lost for the whole season. They might have to put him. He might not even be able to play. And then he goes, well, he hasn't played at all in any game action, so I really can't say anything about him because I don't know. He hasn't been in game action. What, you haven't seen him at practice? What have you done? He's so small you've ignored him? Is that what, you know what I mean? It's just, I just don't like the way his answers are to all these questions. It makes you wonder sometimes, why the team is playing the way they are because of your attitude. And things like that. And it's just, it's amazing. And you've said it, and I've said it, and many other people have said it. And I had an argument with a prominent media person. I didn't have it with him on his show. I did listen to his show. And I'm friends with him on Facebook. We talk on Messenger every now and again. He's from, works with 93.7 The Fan part-time, kind of got the stiff arm from Greg Giannotti a few years back. I think you pretty much have an idea who he is. He lives in Mount Lebanon, and he's a friend of Al Levine's, and I'm a friend of his too. And we had a nice little discussion on Messenger about yesterday. I was telling him how I was listening to his show on Sunday, and he was arguing with several people about, they wanted Mike Tomlin fired and Kenny Pickett replaced, and why isn't this, that, and that going on? And he's giving them logical answers. And I said, Paul, the Steelers, and I've said this many times, will never win a Super Bowl with Mike Tomlin, okay? Right. The Steelers will never fire Mike Tomlin. They're going to wait for him to ride out his contract. And if you think Matt Canada's going anywhere, I heard he still has 2 years left on his contract, so they're not going to buy out his contract and get rid of him, okay, at all. And I personally don't think Art II wants to win a Super Bowl. But Paul said I was wrong, so I don't know.
Wow.
He said,
I agree with everything you just said, bro.
And he's trying to tell me, and I think you pretty much know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention his full name. His name's Paul. All right. But, we had this discussion, and he's trying to say, he agreed with me on the first two topics when I said they'll never win a Super Bowl with Mike Tomlin, ever. I don't think they'll ever win a Super Bowl or even go to a Super Bowl or even come close to a Super Bowl, okay, or even smell it. All right. And then I said, well, I don't think they're going to ever fire Mike Tomlin. They'll probably let his contract run out if that's even the case. And then I says, I don't think Art II wants to win a Super Bowl because, Smokin Jim, if he did, don't you think he would be a little more assertive as to some of the decision making that goes on here?
Yes.
I mean, you've been there and done that. You've seen it.
Where's Omar Khan been?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The numbers man, you call him. You call him the numbers man. He's good with numbers.
The trade deadline is approaching, and we ain't heard one thing from Omar
Khan. Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think they hired that guy that I told you they hired from the Eagles. I think he's the one calling the shots. They hired him as an assistant general manager. I agree with you. I don't think Omar Khan has any idea. I think it's just, what they call GM on paper, or GM. They made him a GM to keep him so no one else touches him as a GM, because he's been through all these interviews everywhere else. Everybody wanted him because he's this big numbers guru with these numbers and salary cap and stuff. And, if he's so good, then why do we still have $20 million under the cap and a sad team?
Exactly.
Am I right? Or we got all this money to play with under the salary cap, and we don't need to save it for next year, Smokin Jim, because we're going to have even more next year, or at least comfortable amount. I don't get this at all. And now people are starting to want to talk about the draft. They want to talk about, what are the Steelers going to do November 1, which is next Tuesday? I don't think they're going to do anything. I mean, I personally, I'm hearing all these stories now that the Packers want Claypool. This team wants Claypool. What makes Claypool so good, okay, that everybody now all of a sudden wants him now? When he can't even catch a ball here and he can't even catch a cold and he can't catch his way out of a paper bag. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean,
well, I tell you what, man. Sometimes getting away from here is the best thing. I mean,
hey, look at Schuster.
Juju was on
Juju,
done here.
yep.
Now the last 2 weeks he had big games for the Kansas City Chiefs. So
yep, he says he's learned more.
Maybe Claypool.
He's learned more this season from Andy Reid than he ever learned in 5 years with the Steelers. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? That's why players, and then you get all these people too, Smokin, Jim. Let's talk about this a little bit. You get all these people, all these players. Oh, yeah, I will play for Mike Tomlin. He's one of the best coaches in the league. Blah, 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 blah. Well, why is it when the free agents are here, why do they leave? How come they don't ask for another contract? How come they don't play well? What's the problem?
I think Coach Tomlin is more of a media darling than the players. I've never heard players really say that. It's always been the media. The media's
always said that.
Yeah, always said that.
Yeah, and
because of the quotes and all.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Yep. We don't have too much time, but we're going to get into some other NFL news. Indianapolis Colts replaced or benched Matt Ryan, and I'm hearing stories now that Frank Reich's walking on eggshells there in Indy. They're not real happy with him right now. Indy's not doing too good. They went out and they made a trade to get Matt Ryan in here. He said he wanted an experienced quarterback. He got one, and now he's made some boneheaded decisions. Denver lost again this week, and Nathaniel Hackett's on the hot seat again. He may not even be the coach at the end of the year up in Denver. They're really frustrated with him. And the Bears, how about the Bears beating the Patriots, Smokin' Jim, 33-14? Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, some of these first-year coaches, man, they're starting to get some victories over some of the better coaches. Well, of course, Tomlin's one of the elite. Yeah. Okay. But one thing I will give credit to the guy, the other media friend of mine, Paul, that I had this conversation with. He and I did agree that who cares, and I've heard some of our other media colleagues, and right, who cares about he's had all these winning seasons since he's been the coach, Mike Tomlin. You're in this game to win a championship, and he's only won one Super Bowl, and he won it with Bill Cowher's players. Then he went to a second Super Bowl with Bill Cowher's players, and his defense didn't do the job they were supposed to do, or the offense, I'm sorry, when Green Bay had fifth-string cornerbacks in there that you and I could have threw passes on. Okay? These were guys that were bagging groceries and pumping gas and doing all that other stuff, that they were bringing in on the scrap heap just for the Super Bowl, and they were doing a better job than the starters were that were hurt. And they did it against the Steelers, and that's how they won the Super Bowl. The Titans beat the Colts by 1 point. Some of the coaching decisions over there in Indy, there's some stuff going around. Josh McDaniel and the Raiders beat the Texans 38-28. Jets, I tell you what, the Jets, man, they're like my Syracuse Orange. Actually, Syracuse lost to Clemson, but they didn't lose by much, Smokin' Jim. I said Syracuse was going to be a team this year for the ACC. They lost one game to Clemson, so what? I think they could run the table, if they win the rest of their games, this week. And what's your thoughts on the World Series, Smokin' Jim? You think it's going to be the Phillies, or do you think it's going to be the Astros?
You know what? I'm a Bryce Harper fan, and I'll be up in Philly this weekend, but they can't beat Houston.
Okay.
They'll have to get awfully lucky and hope it goes 7 games for them to even have a chance of beating Houston. Houston is just a dynasty right now.
Right. Bruce Bochy hired as the new manager for the Texas Rangers, and Ozzie Guillen interviewed for a second stint to be the manager for the Chicago White Sox. What's your thoughts on that?
Wow.
Yep.
What do you think, buddy?
Well, Ozzie Guillen, he was a good manager when he was with the White Sox. He had the White Sox winning. And then somehow or another, he had a couple bad seasons. And, people, how they are in Chicago. They get frustrated and, people and, the ownership. And they went out and they thought that hiring Tony La Russa and, Tony comes marching home or whatever, like they did with Johnny Majors here at Pitt, which you saw where that went, didn't you? Lose 72-0 to Ohio State and then beat Temple by 1 point, 53-52. I'm not going to go any further. Pitt hasn't been prominent since Jackie Sherrill, and I think you'll agree with me on that. So, yeah, and Dan Marino. I saw something. Dan Marino was talking to Kenny Pickett when they were down in Miami for the game on Sunday night, because Dan Marino is part of the ownership group or something with Miami or something. He's got some job in the front office or something he does for them. And he was talking to Kenny Pickett, and I made a comment on Facebook. I says, yeah, he's telling Kenny about how great Pitt was when he played there. And he had the right coach in Jackie Sherrill before Foge took over. Oh, my gosh. But anyway, also in the NFL, Kansas City Chiefs, Frank Clark suspended for 2 games for violating the league's substance policy. So there you are there with the NFL. Major League Baseball, college football, Charlotte. You know who played for Charlotte? Alex Highsmith, the College of Charlotte. His coach, Will Healy, was fired.
Wow.
They started their season Smokin' Jim 1-7, fired. So, fired. You don't hear that anymore. You don't hear that no more in the job market anymore. Fired. It's like, well, your services are no longer wanted. Or they just don't put you on a schedule or something like that. You don't even hear fired too much, so. But anyway, we decided to go in another direction, So I mean that's another good one there too, So anyway, but so some other local sports real quick before we go. Duquesne beat Central Connecticut State 30-6. I talked to my friends Tad Maury and Alex Panarmius over there. That do the games and Duquesne. I thought Duquesne was going to do it again. They took the first drive down. They should have had a touchdown, and the penalty bugaboo hit you again, and they ended up with a field goal. And they were up 3-0, and I said, "Oh no, here we go again, another Duquesne game where they're gonna, they can't get points, and they end up winning 30-6." Robert Morse, listen to this. They have not won a game this year. They got blown out by North Carolina A&T. Who was the former Steeler #1 draft pick played for them?
Oh, yeah.
Jermaine Stevens. There we go. Yeah. Jermaine Stevens. Oh, yeah. I will never forget that pick, man. Wow. Yeah, they lost 38-14 to North Carolina A&T. And guess who they play this coming Saturday? They might as well forfeit. They're playing Appalachian State.
Oh, that's going to be
I'll tell you what. I'll name a score: 64-0.
I agree.
The Riverhounds, they tied 2-2 on Sunday against Birmingham, but they won in the shootout 8-7. So they move on to the playoffs. They're playing Louisville again, or they're playing Louisville. They've had fits with Louisville in the playoffs, Smokin' Jim, but they're in the second round of the playoffs now at Highmark Stadium. This coming Saturday, they play Louisville United, so we'll see how that works out. Smokin' Jim, it's been a pleasure to having you on for another week. We will not be here next week on Sports Corner, Smokin' Jim and I, because my wife is going in for surgery. Could you please say some prayers for her? She's going in for surgery, so we will not be here next week. So we'll see you in 2 weeks right here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Don't forget tomorrow, 2 p.m., a very special brand new show I'm doing called Ralph Williams One-on-One. My guest, Carl Samisi from PCTV, and we're going to talk about the state of PCTV and the state of community producing and television. That's going to be an interesting one, Smokin' Jim. We all know what's going on right now with public television and things like that. So Carl's going to bring us up to speed at 2 o'clock tomorrow. And then I'll see you at 7 p.m. for Talking Wrestling. We have a lot to talk about Monday Night Raw. and the upcoming Crown Jewel card, and some things that happened on Monday Night Raw were pretty interesting, So, and then SmackDown coming up on Friday, which will be on FS1 because of baseball. It'll be on Fox Sports 1 this week, not on Fox, the regular Fox, this coming Friday. It's going to be interesting. SmackDown should be. We'll see what goes on then. It was interesting to see Baron Corbin last night with JBL. He went up against Mustafa Ali. And, oh, no, wait a minute. He didn't go up against Mustafa Ali. Who did he fight last night? Ali went up against Austin Theory. And, of course, Seth Rollins had to get involved because him and Mustafa Ali are having a feud. So, he had to get involved. We'll talk about that tomorrow night, 7 p.m. right here, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. For Smokin' Jim Frazier, I am Ralph Williams. Good night. Be safe. See you in 2 weeks. Have a good one.